Who are we to you, right? Like, it's kind of awkward.
I know. I mean, I'm really tired to do this without laughing. Well, we have Noah Balzer and Chelsea Balzer here with us today. Thanks for being willing to be interviewed for our young adult series on dating. For those in our community who don't know you guys, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves, how long you've been married for, how you met, and your history at Willingdon. Yeah, just help us get to know you a little bit.
All right. Well, we've been married, I'm Noah and this is Chelsea, as Heather already said. Been married since August 2012, so 8.5 years. And I grew up going to Willingdon, and Chelsea actually did when you were quite small.
Yeah, I was born at Willingdon, but it's not the case. I was attending Willingdon from birth and until I was about 4. And then again while we were dating for a couple of years. Yeah.
But Chelsea grew up in Kelowna, and I grew up in Vancouver, and I'm a computer engineer. And we have a 2.5-year-old, so Chelsea's a stay-at-home mom. And I don't know, is there anything else?
How'd you guys meet?
Oh.
We met, well, no, I guess this maybe involves our history with Willingdon too. Because we didn't meet at Willingdon, but we met through like Willingdon connections. As Noah said, I grew up in Kelowna, but I had a bunch of family that still live on the coast and went to Willingdon, and we started camping, like my family with a few other families from Willingdon every summer from about the age of like, I don't know, like you were 7?
Possibly, yeah.
I was probably like 8, Noah was 9. We were kind of somewhere in that age. Yeah, so that's how we met. We met when we were children.
Yeah, and funny story with that is that Chelsea and Heather were actually good friends camping. And I still vividly remember when I started getting a little interested in Chelsea. And this was in the time of MSN. I don't know if any of you would know what MSN is.
The dark ages.
Kind of like WhatsApp, but
On
old
a
school
computer.
on a computer.
Instant chat.
Yeah, instant chat. Anyway, I had to get like Chelsea's email address, so Heather and Chelsea were friends on MSN chatting, so I went on to Heather's and found it, and then joined Chelsea onto my MSN, and Heather got so mad saying I was stealing her friends. And here we are today.
And here we are.
I stole her.
And now I quite approve, so it worked out.
I don't know, I feel like maybe there's still some
Is there still some
Bitterness.
bitterness?
underlying bitterness
Yeah.
there.
So,
sis, but
after this is the counseling session, so we'll just move right along. So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about your dating experience or history? I know it's quite a while back now, but it was a bit of a tumultuous journey. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
yeah. Yeah, tumultuous is a good way to describe it. But yeah, like we said, we met when we were children and kind of in a sense grew up together. And I would say initially it just started out as friends, like whenever you kind of get to that age and you cross that barrier where it's now okay for like guys and girls to hang out together. With, I don't know, maybe around 13 or 14 we were. Yeah, so we just kind of started to build a friendship. And then somewhere in there, you started to gain interest.
And you did, right?
But maybe you want to, I don't know, speak to that or...
Yeah, I mean, I started liking Chelsea probably a decent amount before she liked me back. But eventually, you liked me, or I was just what, like kind of like your best friend.
Yeah.
And
I would say we got to the point where we were like each other's best friend, or one of each other's best friend. We would talk a lot on the phone.
Yeah, because we were long distance for a lot of this.
So yeah, we would call each other. We didn't really text because texting back then was still like, what, 10 cents a message or something. So we mostly chatted on the phone and like MSN. And then we would bus up and see each other every so often. But yeah, I think part of the tumult with the relationship is just we were young. So like Noah was always the guy who just, like from when we were like 15, 16, it was like he just knew he wanted to marry me. And I was like all over the map. Didn't know what I wanted and was confused, and he was my best friend. So obviously I loved him and had a lot of like strong feelings for him in that way, but I would say I just wasn't ever as sure. And I also, how do I say it? Like, I really loved him as a friend, and I wasn't like necessarily at the point where I was super like attracted in the way that I thought I should be, I guess. Especially as we got older and we did even, I think around 17, 18 is when we like kind of officially were like a couple for the first time, right?
I still hadn't like flexed in front of you and stuff like that, so that probably.
And
but yeah, I feel like that was. I mean, dating for us was really hard, and for a number of reasons. But one of the factors, which Chelsea's kind of alluding to, is like maybe she didn't necessarily find me super physically attractive.
I wouldn't even, yeah, maybe put it that way. I would also just say I didn't have those like, those feelings that everyone, or I always thought you're supposed to have or something. You know, like
this is the one.
The movies are like, it was just this kind of consistent like, yeah, I mean, I'm more comfortable with him than anyone else, and he like challenges me in my faith and vice versa. But yeah, I don't know what the word is exactly. And I also had a lot of people, friends and stuff, who their advice to me was like, well, if you don't have that, you know, physical attraction, that's a red flag. And so that also scared me a lot too. People, yeah, so it just added to my confusion, I think, around all of that. And then I was still, I think, in my own journey of understanding what grace and what the gospel was for me and my relationship with Jesus. And so that definitely played into the inconsistencies of me within the relationship. But I don't know, I feel like there's like, we could ramble, and I feel like I'm already rambling, but I don't know if there's any.
But yeah, dating for us was hard. We broke up multiple times. Like, it was long distance. And then even when we decided to like get engaged and get married, it was still a little like, I don't know, I think we were confident in like our friendship and knowing each other, but there was still a little bit of like, okay,
It wasn't
trust in God in this or something.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a really interesting point, because I think a lot of people, maybe especially in the church, come into dating with maybe this list, right, of expectations or qualities that they're looking for. And like you said, for you, it's like, oh, there was a red flag and people told me this. So can you speak a little bit into that of like, you know, how to know when to take certain things off the list, or what things are okay to expect, as far as like knowing which qualities to look for in someone? And also, like, how did you get to the point where you were like, okay, I'm still gonna pursue this even though I might not feel this attraction that I thought I should feel, like those types of things.
Yeah, those are good questions. Do you want to start, or do you have thoughts on the whole list and like?
Oh yeah, things that should be on the list or something.
you could take off things or whatever.
I don't know, like, I never had that same struggle that Chelsea did. Like, for me, Chelsea checked off most of my things, or I felt physical attraction, was more excited, and more kind of like, I don't necessarily believe in the one mentality. I think you can, once you marry someone, they're the one. But before then, like, and obviously God knows, like, God knows the story. But it's not like you can marry the wrong one. Like that's my belief. Is once you make a promise, a covenant promise to them, that's the right one, and they're gonna change. But I think some of the things on the list, or like looking back, it's more that I don't know if you'll bring this up or not, but like even sex, like physical attraction, sex, all that. It's a small part of a relationship. And I think when you're dating, that's like a really desirable part, or feels really important, or like it's going to be a big part of your relationship. And it is a big part of a marriage, but I feel like having someone that I connected with on so many other levels, like on discussing things, on theology, on like personality, and just having fun together. Looking back, I'm really glad that those were on the list and that I held to those and wasn't like, I don't really connect with her, but she's super gorgeous. Like that would have, just been tougher. So I don't know if that's really helpful. But
yeah, I think the whole list thing. I think it's a personal thing, right? But I mean, I can speak to my experience and how I got to the point of like deciding to go forward. And basically, I would say we've broken up once, and then, so we dated really briefly, and then we broke up when we were around 17, 18, and then Noah went away to Bible school for a few months, came home for a few months, and then I left to YWAM for 6 months. And during that whole period, like post-breakup until coming back from YWAM, we didn't really talk a lot. We had a few interactions, one kind of in between you coming and you going, where you kind of reiterated again where you were at with us, like he was still in it consistently, and I was just like, I don't know. But then basically when we came back, I think we both had a lot of just time to grow personally, and when we did connect again and hang out, it was like connecting with your best friend again. It was like, oh, this is so easy and fun, and I missed it and missed him, and so that was great. And then we got to a point where basically you kind of gave me an ultimatum. It was like, you didn't really want to just keep doing what we were doing, like just being best friends forever. We kind of wanted to get to the point where we made a decision. And I think for me, my
daughter's trying to have a little nap in the background, so you might hear her.
I basically he gave me the ultimatum. I took a week to think and pray about it, and I kind of just like tried to almost step back from all my emotions around it and really think through it, like logically. And for me, it was like, well, what's the point of marriage? Like, why even get married? If it's to have sex, if it's to like feel like that attraction with somebody and enter into a relationship based on that, it's like there's really, I guess I didn't see the point in that. And like for me, and where I was at that age, it was like marriage has a purpose, and it's for our sanctification. It's for like us to grow in our relationship with Jesus individually as well as together. And ultimately it's a picture. It's a picture of how Christ loves the church, how he loves us. And so I think when I thought through all of those things, it was like, well, there's no one else that I want to do that with. There's no one else that helps me, and vice versa. Like, we feel like we can spur each other on in that. So it kind of came to the point where I was like, well, yeah, it's a bit of a no-brainer in that sense. But then, yeah, again, we did break up again, like, a year later and stuff like that. So it wasn't like I made the decision and then everything was beautiful and peachy. It was like...
But one of the interesting things, even that you made me think about...
We might need to pause for a minute here.
Yeah, sure. One of the interesting things that you made me think about just now was how, like, when you're dating or liking someone, there's so much emotion. And it's hard to think correctly or clearly, or... So I feel like one of the things that I would say about the list or whatever too is like talking to other people. Like, I don't know, I mean, everyone probably can look back in their life and go at times when they realize they were thinking so wrongly or something, and someone helped them see it. It happens to me all the time too, of like, I'm totally convinced on a certain memory or something, and then someone says like, no, look, this didn't happen. Like, no, this is it. But other people can sometimes see us more clearly than ourselves, and we're broken. We see ourselves brokenly, and we need help. We need each other. And so I think sometimes too, that can help. Of first of all, going like, don't trust yourself. What do other people see? Like, when they hang out with you, do they see things? Do they think that person helps you see Jesus more? Do you? Yeah, and like, really just don't trust yourself. Because your list, you probably shouldn't even trust your list.
Yeah, I think that's where you have to even, like Noah was saying, almost question your list, because even when, I think the intention with making a list is like, I want to be like as thoughtful and intentional with relationships and marriage as possible, but I think even that, it's like our hearts are broken and sinful, and sometimes our lists are just these manifestations of things that we think will satisfy us, right? And I think that was part of my wrestle too, was like, I was dealing with my own identity stuff, which then, got put onto you, and I think there was an element where it was like, will you be enough for me? And of course, like now, the answer is no. I can confidently say that, and even whatever, 8.5 years into marriage, we constantly come back to that. It's like, no, I can't be enough for you, you can't be enough for me. That's not the point of this. The point is that Jesus is enough, and we need him, and we need to like loving Noah isn't me being enough for him and satisfying all his needs, or being the best trophy wife or whatever that is. It's actually going, you need Jesus, and my role is to help you be satisfied and grow in your relationship with him, and vice versa. So I think that's where, coming back to the list thing, it's like, what are you even wanting from this list?
Like, if you trace the list back, what's the root desire? Is it really about Jesus, or is it about your idols? I want to be comfortable. I want someone who makes me feel comfortable, who makes me feel special, who makes me feel good. And really, it's like in our whole lives, we constantly chase idols. We think that's what's best for us, but it's not. What's best for us is Jesus. He's the only one who satisfies all those things. And so oftentimes our lists aren't like, I want someone who helps me see Jesus, who helps me suffer, who helps me cling to him more. We don't think about those things.
Fails me and forces me to need grace.
Exactly.
And doesn't, I think sometimes the best moments for us, and I think this is taking a shift, and we're talking about this in the sense, we didn't date, our dating was just messy, and even when Heather asked me to do this, I was like, my dating advice is like, God is sovereign, because I feel like I did nothing right. I was a disaster, and yet it was like, literally on the wedding day, I was still like, I don't know if this is what I should be doing, if this is the right decision, but I think in marriage, and some of our best moments is the moments where it's like we fail each other and the response isn't, okay, so how can we do better? It's, we failed, and how can we see Jesus right now? How can we see how he's loving us, how he's loving me, how he's loving you, and not jumping in and trying to be the, jumping in and trying to be the savior for each other ultimately.
So you guys said that dating was hard for you. What do you think like the hardest part about your dating experience was? And how did you get through that? And how would you, like, maybe what's some advice that you'd give to someone struggling in their dating?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it really depends on what their struggles are. I can start with this. Like, for me, it was hard because Chelsea was so unsure. That was definitely a hard element. And, like, we had times when Chelsea literally, like, sat down and was like, why don't you just break up with me? Like, I don't know. And why don't you just break up with me and find someone else that you're more sure of? And I could have done that, and that would have been fine, and God would have been over that. But so yeah, so I feel like that was hard, and I didn't know how to be myself. I didn't know how to pursue her, and I don't think I did a great job. And I think looking back, I see a lot of my own idolatry in dating and thinking that Chelsea would be enough for me. But I think like praying, taking things to God, taking things to friends can be helpful. And like I remember, I don't know if this is still like a thing in youth or whatever, but you know what I'm going after?
No, I don't.
That there's this classic phrase of like, pray together, you lay together, or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's trying to get at this idea of don't get too intimate or.
Right.
But I really hate that phrase personally, because to me praying together was really important. And to be honest with our struggles and pray like, God, what do you want us to do with this relationship? And I think eventually I kind of just had this own resolve in my heart of like, I'm just going to do my best to love Chelsea as a boyfriend or as a friend, and I'm not going to stop with that, and then we'll see where it goes. So I don't really know if that's that helpful, but for me it was more of just praying, and then just a resolve of like, I'm just gonna keep loving. I think one of the hardest parts about dating is it's this weird in between thing. Like once you're married, you know, okay, after a fight, should I be with this person? Should we keep going? Or there's a disagreement, should I do this or that? Are they like different things? The answer is just always yes, keep going, always keep going, keep going, keep going. You're married, keep going. That's a covenant, it's important, just keep going. But when you're dating, sometimes you go like, oh wow, this is how they reacted, or they don't like doing this or that. You go, is this a deal breaker?
Yeah, there's almost so much more judgment in it, right? Because you're like, okay, am I going to stay in this relationship?
Exactly.
Are
So
they
you're trying
good
to figure
enough?
that out. You're trying to figure that
Yeah.
out, and you're also trying to work through relational dynamics.
Which is this hard tension, because it's almost the opposite of what a marriage is. A marriage is like this, and if that's the picture of Christ's like marriage to us, it's like it's unconditional. It doesn't matter what we do. It's like, I will never stop loving you. I will never leave you. Whereas dating is a little bit like, I think the purpose is to, get out while you can. You know what I mean? Like, if you're having doubts, or if I'm like, this is the time. Which is almost like, it seems like smart and wise, and I do think that there's truth in that, but there is an element where you're not actually experiencing real love, because all you're experiencing is, oh, how wonderful is this person, and how wonderful am I to them? Which that's an element, like you do bask in each other's wonderfulness or whatever, beauty and all of that, but where the richness of love is revealed is in, it doesn't matter what I see in you, it doesn't matter what you do or don't do, or the person you are in 10 years from now or tomorrow, like there's this safety, right? Of like, I will love you, and there's gonna be times where maybe I don't like you, or it's hard, or whatever, but it's like, it's this commitment.
Yeah, and that's when marriage is a picture of Jesus' relationship with the church.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus says, I'm never giving up. There's nothing you can do to get away from my grace. I love you. It's this it's an eternal commitment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why dating is just weird, because it's not a commitment yet. It's a commitment to think about committing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's hard and that's tricky. And sometimes I look at, other parts of the world where they do arranged marriages, or maybe used to. And there's a sense where I'm like, yeah, there's an appeal there. Just bring someone into my life and we'll just commit. Because that's when it becomes a picture of Jesus in the church. Jesus doesn't date the church. He went straight to marriage in his relationship with us. He just went straight to commitment. He didn't go, oh, I wonder. So that is tricky, and I don't know really what to say with that.
I think what I would say, what I was thinking is, what I would encourage you in is like, along with the lines of like that praying together and stuff, is, well, I would say start having like vulnerable, real conversations. Talk about the hard stuff, go there. And also don't be afraid of when it gets messy and hard. Like, I think sometimes that's when we're like, we're dating, like this is supposed to be like the bliss, this is supposed to be the time where it's the best. And we're fighting already, and we're disagreeing on things. And I think a lot of people in my life, or even my picture, was like, there must be something wrong. If it's already hard now, then marriage is gonna be, oh my goodness, marriage is gonna be awful. But I disagree. Our experience was the opposite. And you're already starting to lay the foundations of your relationship. Like, if you do end up getting married or engaged or whatever, if you never did something when you were dating, chances are you're never going to do it when you're married. So if you're not having those hard conversations, if you're not working through your sin and your struggles and what it means to take them to and understand grace in light of them, then you're probably not going to do it when you're married. And then don't be afraid when it's like, it doesn't just go all peachy and smooth when you fight, when it gets rocky. I would say there's actually a lot of beauty and benefit in that.
So you made me think about something. Like, when you get married, the next day you wake up and you're with your girlfriend or boyfriend. It's not a magical thing where you just all of a sudden change. So I really like what you said of like, if you're not having those deeper conversations, you're not pushing each other toward Jesus in dating, it's not going to just all of a sudden change. We were talking about this with like missions. People want to like go overseas and be a missionary and stuff. It's like, what does missions look like for you right now? And people are like, oh no, I'm not really sharing the gospel right now at university or something. Once I get to Africa, I'm going to be an evangelist. You're like, it's not going to really like change. It's not like a magical thing once you get to Africa. It's not like a magical thing once you get married. And so I think that's really a good point there.
Yeah, and I don't think I'm saying like it doesn't matter what comes out, when you're dating, just push through. Like, I think dating is a time to critically think through things, but I guess it's like when a fight or something messy comes up, it's like, well, that's life. That's going to be your relationship forevermore. So it's almost like, take it as an opportunity. Like, okay, this is an opportunity for us to actually know Jesus more and learn how to overcome this and love each other more, in spite of the fact that we're broken. And like,